I found a baby Joey in the fire. Yeah. It's okay. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. It's all right.
Doing a little koala rescue. She's a mother with a baby. Found them cuddling. Just trying to collect as many live ones as we can.
Downright apocalyptic images coming out of Australia right now.
There are now 6 fires burning at emergency level.
The smoke is so intense and so thick it can be seen from space.
2,000 homes have been destroyed.
6 million hectares of land charred.
A staggering toll on the nation's wildlife.
This is just heartbreaking.
These record-breaking bushfires in Australia have been kicked off by things like lightning strikes, a few cases of arson, and winds. But one of the biggest reasons they've become so extreme is the same reason that bushfires in Australia are a natural part of the country's ecosystem. Their fire season varies across regions. Even New South Wales, the most populous state, is used to blazes breaking out. In 1974, fires burned 3.5 million hectares. And in 2003, another 2 million hectares were lost to fire. But the fires that started in 2019 are even worse. 4.9 million hectares in New South Wales have burned already, and it's only going to grow. So why is this fire season so awful? For starters, as the world is getting warmer from climate change, so is Australia. 2019 was its hottest year on record, with parts of the country reaching 45 degrees Celsius in December. 2019 was also its driest. The places here in gray have seen historic droughts. Together, that provides the perfect conditions for bushfires to start and spread quickly. Throughout the year, other large-scale climate drivers affect Australia's weather and its likeliness to burn. But one of the most influential is the Indian Ocean Dipole, or the IOD. The IOD is a big temperature gradient that affects the surface water in the Indian Ocean, from the edge of Africa to the edge of Australia. Meteorologists have been measuring these temperature shifts for decades in 3 phases: positive, neutral, and negative. When the IOD is neutral, the surface water in the Indian Ocean is evenly warm. A negative phase is when the winds come from the west and shift the warm water towards Australia, Warmer water means more evaporation, which means more rain. So Australia gets more rain than usual, sometimes even floods. But the colder water near East Africa means they get less rain and even drought. A positive phase is what's happening now. It's when the winds come in from the east and shift the warm water towards Africa, which causes flooding there and drought in Australia. The entire process of shifting water temperatures is natural, but 2019's was extreme. The positive IOD was one of the strongest on record, with the water temperature difference between Africa and Australia being unusually high. Hence, extreme weather in Australia, but also in Africa.
The worst flooding in 2 decades. More than 3 times their annual rainfall in only 4 days.
Scientists believe it's linked to record temperatures in the Indian Ocean.
The good news is the IOD is already shifting to neutral, which should bring some much-needed relief to Australia and Africa in early 2020. But as the planet continues to warm, some scientists are concerned about how that might affect weather phenomena, like the IOD. One study predicts positive IODs, like what we're seeing now, could happen more frequently as global temperatures rise and warm the Indian Ocean. Combine that with the rising overall temperature of Australia, and these kinds of devastating fires, fueled by unusually dry vegetation, could become the new normal.
Fire approaches.
She's coming now.
It's 4 days into the new year and Batlow farmer Sean Ryan isn't going anywhere.
I remember hearing them calling for air support on the scanner at one stage and they said they're unavailable.
Thick smoke and urgent funding, the planes still haven't touched down. They're delayed by natural disasters in the US and the Philippines. Although the Ryan family home was spared, 80% of their land is now charred and useless.
We know aircraft don't put out fires, but they give you a fighting chance to save life and property. They can take the intensity out of those fire fronts, allow the ground crews to get in and do their work. We just haven't had enough aircraft. Now we have 4 states ablaze.
The former Commissioner of Fire and Rescue New South Wales, Greg Mullins, has been fighting fires as a volunteer since October.
No property is worth a life, so we don't risk lives for properties.
He warned the government last year that there weren't enough aircraft for the devastating fire season that lay ahead.
We're coming into what I think is the most dangerous fire season, dangerous build-up to a fire season I've seen since 1994. Our national government doesn't recognise that there's a disaster heading their way. So, again, please listen, Prime Minister.
There was a couple of fixed-wing, like smaller fixed-wing aircraft and a helicopter were about all we saw do maybe half a dozen runs at the most into the west of Batlow.
So the Ryan family fought on their own.
Really, we had nothing. We had 2 old Land Cruisers with spray rigs. We had a ute with a 1,000-litre pod and a firefighter and garden hoses.
Just had the hoses out, just normal spray rig, just running water, and as much as you could, put it on mist, put out the main front, but that's all we could do.
He says the centre's always leased aircraft for 3 months, from November to the end of February.
We're finding now that we're going to need to extend that period significantly longer and commence potentially in September, and we'll be operating, especially with these aircraft recently announced, through to March. So, that's a significant portion of the year.
Right now, 145 aircraft are contracted to fight fires across Australia, including 74 helicopters like the Ericsson Sky Cranes and 71 fixed-wing aircraft. The planes include large aerial tankers like the 737, which can drop retardant ahead of fire lines, smaller intelligence-gathering planes like Cessnas, and planes which can scoop up water to dump on flames. The problem is most of those aircraft are leased from North America, and our fire seasons are starting to overlap.